Hi, I'm Gustav. Welcome to my channel. Sometimes people ask me some variation of the question, can acute withdrawal from psychiatric drugs be the mind-body syndrome, or TMS? I've also heard from others that apparently some people are trying this approach for acute withdrawal, so I thought I'd just make a short video on this topic. So I think the first important question to ask is, what is acute withdrawal? Well, if someone takes a psychiatric drug to the point of physical dependency and then stops taking it, then research on this subject, and more importantly, people's experiences, show that withdrawal symptoms are likely to happen. Even if a person hasn't heard of withdrawal before or previously, they're still likely to get withdrawal symptoms because, again, these drugs can cause dependency and therefore acute withdrawal. So this strikes me as probably a purely biochemical process, and for that reason, I don't think acute withdrawal is TMS. I would guess that sometimes a person's reaction to acute withdrawal or their mind's reaction could make it worse, and it might very well play a role in who gets protracted withdrawal sensations. But the acute withdrawal phase itself, I think, is probably inevitable for most people, and it just has to pass. Now, there are, of course, those people for whom, they stop these drugs and they don't get withdrawal. They don't even get acute withdrawal. And the first time I took Paxil, I took it for 5 or maybe 7 months. This was this was a long time ago. And then I stopped taking it, and I never got any withdrawal. But I wouldn't count on that, right? The fact that I didn't take it for very long, that was the first drug that I took, maybe this and other things, played a role in this. But it's not, exactly clear why some people avoid acute withdrawal entirely. In any case, I think the point here is that, I don't think acute withdrawal itself can be resolved through learning about a TMS approach. It probably just has to run its course. Now, I think a more significant question is, how long does acute withdrawal last? The literature, even the critical literature, suggests about 4 to 8 weeks is the duration of acute withdrawal. But is that really true? There are plenty of people out there, who have say there are very specific, time frames for acute withdrawal, specific time frames for protracted withdrawal, just like there are people out there that make claims that, time is the only healer. There's lots of people out there making claims, kind of projecting their own experiences onto others as if it's the universal truth, or kind of regurgitating what they've heard other people say. But in fact, this is kind of a gray area. Now, I would suspect that acute withdrawal might be defined similarly to other kinds of injuries. It's just when symptoms continue beyond the expected period of recovery. Again, for some people, acute withdrawal, this could be, several weeks. It could be several months. I don't really know. Personally, I think each person must define their own experience and decide for themselves, what their situation is and what value a TMS approach might have for them individually. And sometimes it's just not, entirely clear, what's going on. But people might still think, well, this TMS stuff is kind of making some sense. Maybe it's worth a shot, worth a chance, because maybe these withdrawal sensations that are going on, they just start to question them a little bit more. They wonder, why is this happening? Maybe this doesn't make total sense anymore. This is all just coming from a drug, that I'm very slowly tapering or that I took a long time ago. And naturally, of course, it doesn't really matter what I think, because I think I can only speak from my own experience. And each person's experience is unique to them. Now, there is another situation I want to bring up, and that's this relationship between acute withdrawal and tapering. When I first started making these videos, I guess I just thought there'd be more people off drugs, even though I myself, struggled tapering for so long, for like 5 years or more. But most of the people who contact me are still tapering, or they feel stuck. And, in this situation of feeling stuck or tapering, very, very slowly, it can be murky as to what is actually acute withdrawal or adverse drug effects, versus what is TMS. I actually made a video about myself and my experience slowly tapering, and I thought I was experiencing withdrawal from that. And yet when I came to understand TMS, the withdrawal sensations, they stopped. So as it turns out, I only thought I was experiencing acute withdrawal. I wasn't actually. I then carried on with the taper and didn't have any more problems or feel stuck again. And, thinking now, if I didn't use this TMS approach, would I still be feeling like I was stuck on drugs? Maybe I'd still feel like I was in these protracted withdrawal sensations. I don't know. So, but this is my own experience, and I know others have had similar experiences, and this does suggest that, this topic of slow tapering and withdrawal, the question of what is acute withdrawal or adverse drug effects or TMS, it's not always clear. But I mean, even then, after I resolved, or before I resolved these withdrawal sensations and I was just tapering really slowly, I did have questions like, why would such a small, like this micro cut, cause such powerful withdrawal? What would be the biochemical process behind that? I just couldn't make any sense of it. But the idea of withdrawal was the only one I had available to me. I had no other way to understand what was happening, so that's just what I went with. It wasn't until I learned about TMS that I came to understand that my nervous system was in a stress response state and just firing these danger signals that caused all these sensations to persist. And a big part of what put me in that stress response in the first place was acute withdrawal itself. I mean, it's a very scary experience, and it can kick off a stress response that can go on and on. But sometimes it's an emotional stressor that can kick off this stress response and keep these sensations going on and on, or maybe both. So in any case, though, what often happens is we develop, a preoccupation with the sensations themselves, and we begin to, have an enormous fear of the drugs, have an enormous fear of our minds and our brains, and these fears can also help keep these danger signals firing and keep the sensations going. And ultimately, it's the belief that something is, fundamentally wrong with us that can keep this stress response going. Other important factors are, life stressors or personality traits, emotional tension, even unconscious emotional tension about something upsetting us. All of this, could contribute to this stress response or even form its basis. Now, even if that is happening, and, sometimes I think people think there's nothing we can really do, if we have this external stressful situation. But the sensations themselves are coming, from a stress response within. They're not coming from out there. So we can still resolve these sensations, and I might make another video on that topic later. But just back to this original question, is acute withdrawal, is it TMS? Well, it depends on whether it's actually acute withdrawal or an adverse reaction to being on the drugs, or whether it's a learned stress response, that is TMS. And again, I think that's something that people have to decide for themselves. But for a TMS approach to take or achieve its full effect, reframing sensations kind of away from withdrawal is so important, as is acknowledging just any contributory sources of stress or emotional tension, because I think it's possible to kind of reprocess these emotions in a way by teaching our minds that emotions are safe. They don't have to cause danger signals that keep these sensations going. I made a video about journaling, as this was one way that really helped me on this topic. Now, I guess I'd also just say one more thing, and that's that this TMS approach, it can take time for us to fully understand it. and for it to fully sink in, to take its full effect. And the idea that people, are trying this or have possibly tried this for acute withdrawal, I mean, that's not a lot of time for this approach to even sink in, not that it would even work anyway. It took me like 5 months for this to reach a fuller effect. And for others, that's a shorter period of time. For others, it's a longer period of time. But kind of sticking to it, when you're on the right track, even when there are doubts, as I had, even when it's not going perfectly, because it's not, going to go perfectly. But when you just feel, well, this has got to be right. This makes sense. It's got to be right. You just keep going. That's actually, the thing that people have in common the most who have success with this approach is their determination and the will to just keep going with it, even when it doesn't seem to be working. They just keep going and going. They keep pushing their understanding further. So if you're interested in knowing more about this approach or expanding on your own knowledge, I do have a resource page on my free Substack with books by John Sarno and resources with Howard Schupiner, Alec Gordon, Steve Ozanich, and many other sources that can show you how this approach might be useful to you. So that's it for today, and maybe I'll see you again next week.